But how you doing, Scott?
I'm good, thank you.
Can you
A lot
see?
better, lot better now that we're getting closer to this thing.
Yes, yes, yes. I've been really looking forward to having this conversation with you
Uh,
for a long time because I mean, we hang out and we talk about all kinds of things, but I just love the way that you think about painting. First of all, when we get together, we talk about fishing and sports and all kinds of things. But and then I get to see your sketches, your little studies for the large paintings that you do. And that's what blows my mind. And I'm thinking, I don't know of another artist who think about composition and color and painting the way that you do. And it it doesn't surprise me the way that you do the paintings that you do and how I don't see any mistake in any of them. It really is amazing.
mm,
And I mean that because when I'm painting, I'm like constant. I'm making stuff up all the time. Like
yeah,
like juggling 10 things at once, and I'm just like trying to catch it, and not just like
yeah.
paint. But when I see your work, there is a deep understanding of where you're going with the painting before you start. Is that true?
Yeah. I'm pretty. I've explored a lot in there. You just don't see that.
Yeah,
What I do is when I'm exploring, I try all kinds of different things, and then when I finally get to that other one that I'm going to do, maybe a bigger one, maybe just a new one,
yeah,
I'll try different versions of things, and I really like to experiment with the palette, the key. And I change that until I know where I want to go, and then I really hone in. But
yeah.
I experiment a lot before I ever really start dialing it. I mean, a lot of these paintings take me over a year because I just
Wow.
go back over them and over them. I've had these going for 3 years now.
Even with a study and sketches ahead of time.
Yeah, yeah. Because I want to put layers of patterns onto it. And what
Yeah,
I call a pattern, just like a constant dark of a certain value, a constant light of a certain value, a shadow or light, and that is, but
yeah.
and then how they're going to sit in there, how it's going to fit.
Mm,
And I've just tried different things like that. I experiment a lot. So I scrape a lot of things off. I'll sand it down, repaint them, you know.
yeah. Well,
It's just,
we're jumping into it. I would love. I don't think people realize how many stacks and stacks and stacks of studies you have. So when I
oh,
visit your studio, not only just the small paintings you have, but also
yeah,
notebooks of little notans they call them, right? And
yeah,
you'll take a painting that you might see sitting right behind you,
yeah,
and you'll see a whole bunch of little notans designed before you
yeah,
ever go to that.
yeah. Sometimes
And
they're intense. Sometimes they're just really quick gouache. I'll never know what I'm going to do. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
so here's the question: do you do that? Let's say if you work from life, you work from both from life and
Mhm.
whatever reference you have, right?
Yeah.
So you do you have the reference in front of you and you do the studies first?
Oftentimes I do. Yeah. I
Yeah.
might go straight for the big ones though, and then just start working them out. Because if I get a good picture of what I think I want to do, a good picture meaning in my head, where I want to go. I like the fact that I'm experimenting larger
Yeah.
and don't let that. I don't initiate everything through a study every time. Just because I like the I like it's like hunting, right? Hunting fossils or whatever. He's just like it feels like you're turning over rocks until you find something. It seems like, and
Sure.
that's what painting seems like to me most of the time. It's just like one big discovery after another.
And I would say that's how I usually do. I do very few studies. But
Yeah,
there's one painting I have in the show that has one study, and it
yeah.
was the easiest painting I did because I had a study. But I'm
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah,
so usually I jump in and just dig through it,
yeah, yeah.
And I love that process. But man, the one painting that I had the study for really made it a lot easier. So
Does it typically frees me up to be more inventive though. That's when I use those studies so I spend more time up here.
yeah,
Once I have the information that I think I want, I love to just experiment within that range and then change
right,
the key, change the temperature, change the palette, stuff like that.
yeah,
I just never know what I'm going to try, and I'm experimenting a lot more than it looks.
I think that's an important point that you made, because I think the whole point of it is that it allows you for more freedom
Yeah, exactly right. For
because you
me,
have structure down.
at least I have something that's semi-logical to start with. And then
Yeah.
and I spend less time looking down here,
Yeah.
inventing things than getting it up there and then looking what's happening to the whole. I'm more concerned about the whole when I'm working those big ones and constantly in a mirror all the time.
The whole meaning, the entire
Looking at
mixture.
the whole scene, how it's working as a whole unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful philosophy, because I think you can't really make any meaningful decision without understanding a bigger picture, right? And that
Yeah.
applies to life too, because
Yeah.
obviously, if you think you know this, if you think you know everything and all you know is this much, you're
Yeah.
missing the world. And so, it keeps me humble from,
Yeah.
jumping to conclusions about anything.
I know.
You
Well,
know,
it gives me a little closer map to get there, but after that, I still like to experiment within that range, whatever that is. And I
yeah.
find that I find a lot more again after I do that. So I
Mm,
don't know. I mean, when I look at a lot of different people's work, including yours, I mean, I love them. I think Daryl asked me yesterday, he goes, what do you have these thing you think about Quang, you want to make a statement on? I said, well, he feeds me, he feeds me ideas. He
mm,
thinks different. And I think that's pretty much most of my best paintings because I'm thinking outside of what I normally might go at it with. But
yeah.
that's just me setting my own parameters somehow. And then there's a lot of strength in those parameters once you know where they're at, and then you just start pushing on them.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, Scott, is from Harvey Pinnick, who wrote the Little Red Book. He's about
Yeah,
golf things.
yeah,
And in the beginning of the book, he dedicated it to his teacher, and he said, "This is to my teacher who said about creativity or originality." He said, "Originality has nothing to do with coming up with something new. It has to do with doing what you know to be true." And
yeah,
I thought that was so beautiful because,
yeah,
like, the way that you do the study and you said, and that is trying to find the truth that makes sense to you, right?
yeah, yeah,
From that, you can spring any kind of creativity. That any newness is built on a good foundation.
exactly right. And
But when you try to be avant-garde,
yeah, that never
it
works.
doesn't. I tried it before. It doesn't work because there's not that foundational truth underneath it to push you to that.
Yeah, and I again, what you said with that statement you made, and that's like Hemingway used to talk about making one true statement, and that true statement to me is that how something relates to another thing, if I can make that legible, it gives me a hell of a start to then making everything else legible to that. Because if I can make that one true statement to get down, especially those studies, then I
Mm,
find like my jumping off point, then they open up my own parameters more. I can
mm.
give myself a lot more range. Does that make any sense though?
Oh no, you're gonna have to explain that a little bit more for me to.
But if I snip my parameters, like I might say, okay, I like this color palette that I'm using here. I like the relationship of all these colors and these values working together. But now what I'm going to do is experiment over it, and I'm going to take a whole new palette and go over this whole painting again with a
Oh,
different palette.
mhm.
Like say, it might be Indian yellow, some crazy other red, and and possibly a blue of some sort, or just black it on occasion, just to simplify and redo it. But I'll leave color showing, and
Yeah.
I'll go back and I'll repaint them again, completely repaint the painting with a different palette again, and I get that nuance of other color showing through. That's kind of a different palette underneath.
Wow. Do
But
you change your palette quite often, or do you
as
have a?
I change it only as I feel the need for the painting to get a
Mm,
boost of variety,
yeah.
And I think that
So
balance between variety and harmony is the hardest part to get to the end.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
still learning so much about color right now. I feel like
too.
I'm a
I don't know.
baby when it comes to it with
Me
color.
too. I always go back to Zorn's palette because I mean, when I
Huh.
say Zorn's palette, I mean going back to a simple palette because I just don't get as much trouble. I mean, there's a lot of I don't try to jump into some crazy colors right away, and I
Is
can't
that
manage it.
interesting?
Yeah,
I tend to do the opposite. I go more.
yeah, I didn't manage it. Yeah,
I think having more will help me, but it doesn't.
yeah. Well, it's at times it just seems so foreign to the painting, but then
Yeah.
you learn to manage that and that's why I change palettes once in a while, though, is to
Yeah.
introduce a different look to it and then come back with it and then use those harmonies together to just give it another layer of interest, you know.
Well, we could, we jumped into this conversation way early. I want to step back and give everyone else a chance to understand that the two of us are having a show together
Yeah.
in exactly a month, July 20th, down in Kerrville, Texas, right? And this is the second show we've had together.
That's right.
The first one was at the Booth Museum,
Yeah.
and down in Atlanta, and that was great. And then this time, you would think I've learned my lesson by now. But I'm still learning. But each one will have about 50 paintings, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Some large and a lot of small ones or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be showing some of your gouaches, which I'm really looking forward to seeing.
About half of them will be gouaches, I think.
Yeah. So Daryl at the Beauchamp, the curator, has allowed us to be as free as we want to with these paintings, which is wonderful. And so we've had, 2 years to paint this?
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a little longer, but
yeah,
I knew about it before you.
But the thing was, it still came down to yesterday, at the very last minute.
Yeah.
I sent off the last 5 images to the catalog.
Yeah. He's texting me for another one today. Do you have this? I'm like, God, geez.
I know Daryl's very patient.
He's good.
But did you have did you have like an idea in mind for this exhibit to paint towards, or you were just going to paint?
I think that's the point for me. Is it's like what is exciting to me out there when I go outside, and what is I want to share. Time and memories are everything to me. I think that's what's the most important thing.
Time and memory.
Yeah. Well, this in our natural life, I think some of the most important things are time and memory, and I have such great memories going outdoors, and I love being out there. I like finding new places, and I like to try to say, this is what's interesting to me about the place.
Yeah.
And that's what the paintings are about. And I don't even know where I'm going to end up, any more than you do when you start. I'm guessing you the same. You get a concept and you start with that concept and it goes 20 different directions. It's kind of like writing. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, the very thing you started with is the thing you have to kick out. It doesn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're just exploring again. And I just find that that's what all these paintings are about to me. Just places I've loved to be around and see, and try to basically share that emotion I feel when I see these places.
I think the one thing about the two is they're very different from one another is that you see big, and you're in it all the time, big open spaces. Your paintings are about depth and space. And I'm like in little spaces, like I'm spaces. And it's interesting. I think that's very true. I like intimate close-up spaces. I don't paint big space,
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with that. To me, to paint those simple open spaces, it seems, is more challenging because they're more subtle values. I love chaos and touch and rhythm and bringing all that together. Can I share a few of your images real quick?
Sure.
I have a page up, and then you can show other ones in a while.
Okay.
I want to show some of these. There it is. So I'm just going to show so that people know what I'm talking about. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yes, I think I believe this painting was at the Booth Museum, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it was in Booth.
That's just crazy good, Scott. I'm like, what the heck?
Oh, thanks.
The warmth in the warmth in the shadow over here, and then you have light and shadow, but you have so much detail reflected into the shadow. And how big was that painting? It was
4872.
Wow.
Yeah,
I could barely reach the top of that painting.
Oh, come on. Oh, yeah, that was the start of most of mine right there.
This is what just so intrigues me. You've got it all worked out in this little sketch, and this is a gouache on kind of a paper, isn't it?
Yeah, that's on just a craft paper is all. I do a lot of oil painting and some gouache on a craft paper too.
Did you do this on location too?
Probably, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure I do.
Wow.
I mean,
And,
because I try to just decide where I'm going to go with it, and I just kind of throw information at it, trying
yeah.
to compose it. You know, those marks you see on the very top and the bottom left,
Uh-huh.
that mark, that's just me trying to create tension in a couple places for balance. On the
Wow.
edge of the painting to just balance things out. And I guess that's probably what I'm thinking is how to put things in the surface and compose it, right?
Yeah. You know, when you show your own screen, I want you to use the arrow to point some of that out.
Okay.
This is so good that, and it's so complete to me that I feel like I can take this sketch and do a larger painting of it without ever being there. Because you've worked everything out for me. You know what I mean?
Mm. That's
You
it's got the essence I tried for. Yeah. So I can.
yeah, that's so hard to do. Okay, I'm gonna go through it. So I love this one because of the notes that you have on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Go through that a little bit. What's going on there?
Just it looks to me like I do everything so different sometimes. Looks like I have a sky and the snow,
Yeah.
shadow, same value. I'm talking to myself here because it says value one. There's a value that's the sky and the light of the snow, with the light of the trees, the same value as well. Then the others are just the third value. I'm just thinking, how am I going to group these and connect them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of it's just the notes I see. I actually just make notes sometimes outside like that. I'll try to go for the color and the value and not
Yeah.
even paint the painting.
No way.
Yeah,
Really?
because I just try to like disassociate from what I think I know and isolate those areas that I think are key information.
Wow. So you make a note like that on the left on this page on the paper
Yeah,
without ever doing the actual painting.
on occasion I'll do that because it helps me to think more objectively about it. And I see this is what I think I was seeing in there, and rather
Wow.
than just kind of going and doing things the same way I might do them, I
Yeah.
don't allow myself that. So it just gives me a different way of thinking. Other times I'll go to do a sketch, and as I'm starting the sketch, I'll put the mark over on the left after that, so that I can see
Uh-huh.
where I started and what I might end up with. And I find myself often starting off too warm most of the time. I mean, I find my tendencies this way. You know, I look for
Wow.
things I tend to do and try to not do them the same way all the time. But that might be
See,
overthinking to some people. But for me, I think that's what I love about the process. It's a
yeah.
intellectual process, but it's also it's an emotion that you can finally get to after you have the balance of your knowledge and your knowledge and your emotion there. You know,
Yeah, I think what's beautiful to me is that you're arriving at your own truth. You're finding your own
right?
truth in a
That's
sense.
exactly right. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
However you can get there, right?
Yeah.
However,
This makes no sense. This is really funny. Makes no sense to me at all looking at this, but I know you understand what you're doing.
okay. Well, to me, it's a way to find it, right? That's all. Just a way to
Yeah.
find
Yeah. Oh my,
I try different things to just try to think outside of the ways I normally do things. So,
of course. No, all the gradation. How big is this little painting?
probably a 10 by 10.
Holy crap, it looks like a huge painting.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just a little,
This is a big painting. Wow.
that's
So
30, 32.
the gradation of that glacier from the light to dark as it, and light to dark as it goes towards the back, and oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
That's
Ah,
I don't
look
know
at
what to think of that. I look at these things, I always want to rework them, but, but that's pretty normal, I think, for all of us, right?
yeah, that's normal enough, I suppose. But oh my gosh, the drama. I
Well,
just love the shape
this
of
to
them.
me was chaos. When I mean, to me, this one to me is like those places I love to be.
Yeah.
And this is up in a place I used to have a cabin up in the Wind River Mountains, and it just you walk and you just hit this crest and you're wondering what's over the edge, where's the lake, and you're coming up to this chaos. And I love the gnarly trees and all that stuff, and that's part of my biggest love of being outdoors is that mystery of what's around the next corner, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I just love this the shape of rocks and the shape of trees up there because they're so unusual.
How do you even get up there?
Walk.
You hike?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would stop me right there.
Well, we used to think I've taken horses up many times too. They have We'll put the
That's,
horse. We'll put all the painting gear on the horses, and they'll take us up, and they'll take the horses out, and we'll stay for about 10 days.
look at this, Scott. I love this rock right here.
Oh,
Echoed back here. Like,
okay.
look at the rhythm of the shape, and then how warm this light is, and how as it goes back, how cool. And you have this understanding of what's closer is redder, warmer, yellower, or whatever, and then you it's cooler as it goes back. Well, that works perfectly in huge distances like that.
Yeah.
And with my painting, with the short distances that I paint, that doesn't apply that much. But when you're painting landscape like that, gosh, you could really see it here.
Yeah, I always find the hardest part about big scenes like this is to connect everything in a way that doesn't feel like you introduce something crazy. You want to, when you had the crazy trees and crazy rocks, it's still organization. You have to get rid of a lot of it, or try to keep up with all the chaos to see if you can manage it. And I like to try both too. Yeah.
When you say get rid of it, get rid of what?
Well, let's say all those 1,000 rocks that might be up front, I might put only 2,000. And I mean, sometimes it just feels like there's no end to it, and they're all similar in scale, and you have to look for proportion differences and find ways to imply the look of a place without defining it over and over and over, because you just can't define everything.
So you're saying you improvise quite a bit.
I improvise a lot. I move a lot of things around. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I move a lot of stuff. I'll move around. I'll move the trees. I'll open up the shapes. And, to me on this one, if I'm not careful, I could make it as interesting on the entrance on the left instead of toward the right of that rock. I mean, yeah, when I started working it out, it started becoming equal, and it started feeling too equal to me. And
I can picture it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
This is
what I also love too? Okay, I'm such a shape painter. I love shapes. And you've got these like these pointed triangular shape in the tree, but you have that in the snow too.
Okay.
And then this reverse point, and you've got shapes and that mountain too. So the whole thing is echoing these triangular shapes. You have it in here. I don't know if you're doing that intentionally, but I'm seeing it all painting. Just beautiful.
I think that, and that is this important part is to, I think, get the variety of shapes in painting. I mean, all kinds of different shapes are there, but how much is enough, right? I don't know.
That's what we try to find out. Yeah.
Oh man, that's antique.
Is it old?
Oh God, yeah, that's probably. I did that in the early '90s, I think.
Wow, it's still really good. I just picked it out of the internet. You're still out there, but beautiful harmony of tones. Gosh, so one of the things I want to talk to you about, if we get to it, is how you've grown from here to where you are now and what your understanding of painting.
Okay.
Oops, sorry, that's so small. These are tiny, but I think these are gouaches, right?
Yeah, those are gouache.
Your gouaches are killing me. I've tried gouache and I got nothing but a big old mess, like melting all together. I can never get the colors and values to do what it's like training a cat.
No,
it doesn't work.
I'm not buying that one.
No,
I'm not buying it. I see what you're doing with stuff. I feel the same about yours. I think don't you think we just get tired of our own marks once in a while? Somehow it looks like us no matter what we do.
Yeah.
You just can't shake yourself from it. It's like, here I am again,
I suppose, but man, your gouaches are they're the cleanest things. They're so clean. Like they're so intentional, it's like, I don't know how you do it. I think my gouache they come out to be about 40% of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I have to work at them for sure. I know. God.
I love this. Yeah, this is so typical of where you live, isn't it? Just this big open plains and the sky.
Big clouds coming in. Yeah. I love those big spaces like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, I just have such great memories being out there, I remember this day, actually, it's a friend of mine's place, and he has a fly fishing place there as well. Yeah. And there are pheasants running around this field, right? And all of a sudden I see this, what do you call these things? there's a different fly that they don't typically see. And it was just the craziest thing. I said, "Oh, I've never seen these flies. What the heck was it?" And it went out and said, "I'm going to try this on the lake." And they just went crazy. And I mean, the thing is the memories from those trips, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that's, you know, I don't
Yeah.
know, those places mean a lot to me, I guess.
Well, now that you mention it, I feel like when I look at these paintings, I really know you. You know what I mean? I know the artist's heart, and I think that's really cool. This big ocean space, it really speaks about
Mm.
you. Really, I mean, I
Yeah,
get it.
thanks.
It's really cool. Oh, this is one of my favorite gouaches. I told you I want this one.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I just love the variety of this sagey green, and then you go to this whatever it is, and then it ends up this beautiful arrangement of yellows to green. Just kills me. And then you have these subtle purples to complement it in the back.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, what the heck?
Well, it's kind of how I see it, but I also was the reason I did it this way, Kwong, is I remember doing it, and you picked it up right away. You said you're interested in yellows or something, and
Yeah.
you texted me about it, and I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do." When I don't have I don't know, I just have never liked yellow all that much because I just overdo it, you know, and every time, and I wanted to
Yeah.
see how far I can push this yellow and say that's saturated as I want to go, and then have the supporting elements show up. And
Yeah.
that's what that was about. That's it.
Well, you nailed it. I mean, I've done some yellow paintings of dancers. It was very
Yeah,
interesting.
I've seen those. Love those.
Well, thank you. But they don't have this range of yellow.
Mhm.
I yeah, I'm still working on color. That's
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
that's still the thing that drives me insane. Okay. Is that it? I think that's what I just wanted to show those
Okay.
just to give the audience a sense of let me see, stop sharing. I think did I stop sharing? Okay. But
Yeah.
anyhow, that there's just so much can you talk a little bit about the work that you have in this exhibit coming up at the museum?
I did too. I'm done with them. That's all I can say. I'm ready to get out of that. I just,
Yeah,
I'd love to see some of the what you're putting in the show too. Do you have some of those that you could show?
I do. You know, I joke because it's Scott Christensen and Quang Ho, but it should have been Scott Christensen and 50 of his small friends in the show.
Oh man,
Like each of my painting is as different from the other as a man.
I love
The thing
that.
about it, you know, the last show we borrowed a few paintings back, I think, but this
Yeah,
show, most of the work is new,
pretty
I
nice.
think.
Yeah,
And I thought, well, I have 2 years, I'll just paint like crazy and see. But it became this whole exercise of jumping all over the creation. I'll show real quick some
I
of
love what she does. Yeah.
okay, all right. Window. Let's see, was it this one? Here.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
There.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So this
Yeah. Go ahead.
let me just go and show you how different these paintings are.
Well,
I'll start with this one. This is a borrowed back painting. This painting was done like a week after September 11 happened, and it was a fundraiser for something. And you know, at that point, I was really emotionally charged from the whole incident.
yeah.
And 24 by 30, I borrowed this back for the painting, and it was for a fundraiser for something. And I painted this, and
Yeah.
you can see the expression on it, just it just raw, right? And
Yeah.
that's the kind of painting I used to do when I was younger.
Yeah.
And that was September 11. How many years ago now?
Yeah.
But and that goes back to 1995. This is an old painting. So, but this
I love that too.
this is a new one, and it's sitting right behind me. It's painted on Yupo. Is about 4 feet by 5, 6 feet, and if I zoom in and zoom in, I could probably take another year on this painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's about a walk in the woods in the fall, in Pennsylvania,
Yeah. I love
and
that. Love the
and I
soft ranges over on the right. Now you're trying to incorporate just enough of that and still keep it chaos. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to manage that stuff. That's fun.
the thing about this painting is like the ultimate in orchestrating a chaotic symphony.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can see every piece of color is uniquely specific.
Yeah.
That I don't repeat the shape. I might repeat an echo of a shape theme. Like the lightest shapes have this triangular shape, and then you have this kind of shape, and
Yeah.
so it's all obviously invented. And I think maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I couldn't have done this, but now
Yeah.
I love this kind of diving into a painting.
And the thing about that, oh, that's amazing. That one you just had right there. The thing about that is people will think it's just color everywhere, and it's not.
No,
It's variety everywhere. That's the key to that thing. The colors are definitely in there, but they're tucked in and they're surprises. Yeah. And if they're not a surprise, it doesn't mean anything. It seems like,
right. I'm surprising myself. So like you talk about the structure in your small sketches, which gives you more freedom.
Yeah.
If you look at this painting, I'll show you the structure. If you look at a yellow pattern, there's yellow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it does its own thing. The orange does its own little thing.
Yeah.
The whites and the off-whites is scattered like an explosion all over it.
Yeah.
And that holds it. And then the blacks, the darks will there's a pattern to every color, right?
Yeah.
And then the trick is not to repeat yourself. So
Oh God, I know.
it's an interesting painting.
But repeat yourself, but on a different scale somehow, if you
Right,
repeat
right.
yourself. Yeah. And it's like, that's what Bach did when he rewrote that Italian concerto. He took Vivaldi's piece of music and he took 10 years to rewrite it. It took him 10 years to rewrite that thing. The only reason he did it was to learn how to think musically.
Wow.
That's the only reason he took that. And he took this piece that Vivaldi did and the Italian concerto, and he made it for a harpsichord. And he wanted the harpsichord to sound like a full orchestra. And the whole, yeah. And so he talked all the time about repeating, but not exactly. It sounds repetitive, but it's not repetitive at all.
I think a better word is echoing.
Echoing, yep, yeah.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of echoing going on, but not. In other words, every shape has to be unique and specific, but there's a thing going on. So anyway, that's I won't go through all of them, but just to show you,
that's
this painting is called Susanna and the Elders. It's a biblical story about Susanna and being spied on by a couple of creepy elders in the but so where I put them, I don't know if you see them. Most people miss them, but here's one.
Oh,
I've integrated into the leaves.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So so that this is supposed to be a Western Art Museum, but I'm doing this anyway.
That's an awesome, some rich green without getting too much. That is really pushing it. I love that. I really like that.
You know what? Thank you, Scott. But I can tell you that if I had your sense of greens, I could even add more to it. I don't know why it is. So color is my final frontier. I'm gonna be good at color one of these days. I'm still working at it.
No, I think really it's a cardboard not too, but that's fantastic. I mean, that's pushing it in all kinds of directions with green. I love it.
Yeah, it's a fun piece. And then this one is called Winter, and here's the when I was pointing out these echoing of shapes in your mountain, same thing, right?
Yeah, right there.
All these triangular shapes just echoing all through, and then she just gets fitted inside of that, and the anomaly is the circle, but it's echoed a little bit here, right?
Yeah, and then bottom,
yeah, just a little bit.
How many things have influenced you to get to that ability to try things like this? You think of the Nouveau movement of art, and you think of all these different things that influence us that we don't even realize how much. but
Yeah.
it's all just another thing that sits there, and when we're painting, it seems like that all kind of comes to us in different ways.
Oh, are you there?
I've always, when I look at your work, I can see
I
you
want to make
experimenting
sure I
with
don't
all these
lose you.
different things that you know and see. When I look at the one you had,
I think.
go ahead.
Yeah. The one before.
Yeah, when I look at that, I mean, what's really striking to me on this is the real difference between the skin tonality
Yeah.
and then and all this really rich color,
Yeah.
and still just how harmonious it is. It's like it's such an opposing thing, just the texture, the skin versus all those heavy leaves and stuff. I love that. I think this really, I like the variety in that one a lot. That's really neat.
Oh, thank you.
It keeps sticking. I've always noticed when I go to a show, and especially around your work, I'd like to, I'm starting to walk away, and then I want to come back.
Mm.
I want to come back and look at it again because it's still stuck in my head.
Mm. I
And
love
I think
that.
that every time you just go away from that, it's still stuck. So I got to go back, see. I got to see what do you do there,
Well, I think what you don't see is how many times this painting has come on and off the easel, and how much changes
Nobody
it
would
has gone through. Yeah, you like this whole dark area was something else altogether at one point.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's changed so much. So I mean, just to okay, here's these two paintings, no different. This one is an experience in Pennsylvania in the deep fall, and when you're there, this is painted like I imagine Monet being in Pennsylvania is what I was thinking about.
Okay.
So
That's
when you
neat.
get up to this close up to this painting, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's just color and color, and it's so much fun. And and then the next painting is just the opposite of that, which is what happens when you walk through Colorado summer in the mountains and you see the aspens and this sagey light green just kind of shimmer. So I'm trying to capture that in this painting.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love the key on it. It's just different, it's so different.
Yeah, very different. So I'm all over the place. So this one is one of my favorites in the show. This one took me a long time, but Adrian and I were driving through Mendocino, California.
Yeah.
And we stopped at this beach and we walked out and we found these abalone shells on the beach. And like you never see abalone shells. And they were and the seagulls were feasting on them. But I remember when I was walking around, the texture of the stones and the kelp and the stuff and the sea debris and the texture of the gulls all kind of melted together.
Yeah.
And you can barely make out what is what. And that just stuck in my head for 5 years before I painted it,
I get it.
And
even then you're saying, am I getting it? Am I? Because it's always just stuck,
Yeah.
And it's like that you're going to revisit that for how long? You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. No, I can tell you this painting became what it became, but it didn't what I had in mind happen. But
that's awesome. I like what you're doing with the top too. You're connecting that bird's wings and with that whole horizon there.
Oh, yeah, it's all. This whole painting is about connection. It's about connection and integration. It's like this bird is connected to the ground in subtle ways, Yeah. And the neck is connected here, but so everything is. I like to say that if I take the corner of the painting here and peel it off, everything will come off in this one sheet, one giant stream. Everything is visually connected.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. So, man, that was cool.
Thank you.
How do you describe the time when you saw it, right? When you see those things, it's just, you just completely absorbed in them. And you're like, and everybody, the onlookers have to think you're just absolutely nuts. Taking close-ups of these, you're trying to feed the seagulls. I don't know what you're doing, but you're going, man, alive, I got to see this again. Let's stick around,
But if I can imagine if you were there, you would have seen the amazing cliffs on either side of me that you would paint it.
Yeah.
And I'm like close to the ground. Of course, I'm closer to the ground, but I'm closer to the ground looking at the close-up stuff, and while you are there painting the cliffs. That's what I would see, right?
Oh yeah, maybe. I usually, I guess that's true. Yeah, that's
And
great.
then you have something like this, which is very two-dimensional, you know, just
That's, that's
rhythm
great.
and shapes.
How big is that? That's 36, 24 is that?
24-36, yeah, exactly. So anyway, and then you have Adrian
Beautiful.
walking through the woods. This one's a lot of fun to paint.
Did you ever? How many times did you have to photograph that?
Actually, I have one photograph, but it didn't look anything like this. I actually invented most. I would say about 90% of this painting is invented.
I mean,
Even
yeah.
Adrian didn't quite look like that.
I mean, when you're painting it, have you ever noticed that when you photograph them and you look at the painting with a smaller photograph, you can see problems?
See problems all the
Like when
time.
you take a, I know. But when you take a photograph, there's nothing like a photograph of your painting. You're about to send in to Daryl and you're going, I don't know, I didn't see that. And then all of a sudden you're back at it.
Yes. Oh my God. In fact, I already sent this off, but don't tell Daryl this, but actually changed this whole area.
I knew you did. Yeah, that's what I mean. Because that's what I do all the time. I mean, it's like never done, you know?
No, it's never done. So anyway.
I love that. Oh, this is nice. That was nice.
It's crazy. I'm crazy. It's all over the place.
I don't think so. I think you get the same feel with most of them. I just like your experimenting, though. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
Look at that.
This is the closest one to a landscape.
Yeah.
You know, that when I go mushrooms, you know, I love mushroom hunting in the woods in Colorado. So when I do, I really hate hiking. Hiking to me is a pointless exercise because then you're just walking. But if I'm hunting the mushrooms, I can walk for 10 miles and not even feel tired.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, so it takes me deep into the woods, away from the trails, and I'm seeing stuff like this.
That is beautiful. That is such a beauty.
Thank you. So that's what I'm painting, is that experience of, I want to hear I want you really to hear it and feel the tranquility of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But again, it's a very close up thing.
That is fantastic. I love the color. That feels like a whole new palette to you too. This one too.
Yeah, it is. That's a whole new palette for me.
Isn't that great? And you mean when you're painting that kind of stuff, you don't even know if you're in the right track sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it feels so unique to you, you know? That's what I love about painting and places that you just, that is such a neat, really well handled the water too. Wow, that's cool.
But isn't being surprised the most in your own work? You know, you wanted to make it work too, but being surprised is the most delightful thing in painting for where I am right now.
Yeah.
Is to have an idea that is very vague. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it off or not, but to just go with it and see where it ends up. And most of the time, you know, you may arrive at 40, 50, 60% of what you had in mind.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you push a little bit past that, but that's where you do the most amount of growing, and it feeds the next.
I couldn't agree more. I love that part of painting because it's like you look at it later and you go, I don't know how I got there.
Right.
It's just a mystery you got there, you know?
Yeah.
But you do it, I feel, oh, that's cool. Wow.
This one, so talking about surprise, this one was like, it was painted mostly with palette knife. And I've always hated palette knife paintings. I think they look like somebody's trying to paint with their elbow, you know. So why would you try to paint with a palette knife? You can't control that dumb thing. But
but that's kind of like me in the yellow. Well, I don't like it. Well, let me see if I can do it and shut up and try it. Right.
So that's why I did this. And
I love that orange next to her, and then repeated. We're in the back there.
Yes, thank you. This is my old studio at the Art Students League.
Cool.
And I'm out of that studio now, but you know, I take it with the palette knife as far as I can, and then I take the brush up and just push things around a little bit to finish it. You know?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Otherwise. So anyway, there's 50 paintings, so there are all kinds of
that is beautiful.
craziness in there.
That's the beauty.
So this is kind of a Zorn-esque, but
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
Kind of an idea, right? It's very much based on tonal. This is the only one that I have. I did a little sketch for Scott, and maybe I'll show you the sketch when we're done. But
Okay. That's a dude too.
look at that. This is a little 12 by 12 of the autumn columns too.
Do you tend to keep away from those darks for a while before you put them in?
I don't put the darks in till very much later.
I do. Me
I
too.
always put the darks in the very last.
Me too. And
Really?
I know I can't control it. If I am dictated by the dark, it throws my whole key.
Interesting.
And if I don't get my middle values constructed, I'm relying on dark just to solve my problems. And I don't like that idea. I mean, when I put a dark pattern in, I want it to support it, not to dominate the shadow, you know.
I feel the same way. They become like little accent darks. Even the figure, the nude with the dark greens behind her.
Yeah.
I put darkest dark in way later. Like the last thing I did was put the darks in. I felt like, where are all the darks? I better put them in. So that's how
it's true. I wait though, and I find I have to use I use them as a pattern, so just to support it. But I never know how I'm going to use the dark actually. But I get them in early just to see it. But then I end up beating them up like a Pac-Man, and then I'm like, okay, now I got to put those back in.
Interesting. But you know, I see people like David LaFell who does these darks first.
Yeah.
I suppose you do what makes the most sense to you. But to me, it doesn't make sense to put in the darks first.
I can't get out of them. I don't make a legible shadow if I get too dark.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, that's just me, but I mean, I find the connectivity of everything is the hardest part to do. I bet I've got a couple of studies, and this is one of my little notebooks I paint in.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm about half afraid to get on the screen right now because I'm going to blast that thing out of here.
You'll be okay. You could share it.
But I've got a lot of little paintings in this just thing. I'll get fun like this.
I know. Oh my God.
Just
so Scott, I don't know why. Maybe it's the internet connection, but you're a little bit blurry. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. That is that gouache?
Yeah, these are all gouache.
So you tape off the parameter a little bit before you paint?
Yes,
you peel it up?
Like this.
Oh my God. I want them, all of them. Is that all in one notebook?
This is one notebook, yeah. I just love trying different things in here. I mean, I don't know.
Will you show one of those at the museum? Wow. Dude. That looks like a giant painting.
I mean, these places, I get crazy. I come back and I'm going, okay, what did I see exactly? You know, I'm like, that's not it. That's not it yet. And I just miss them all up most of the time. But yeah, we're going through Wyoming. These are some of my favorite things to do. Just little places like this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Scott, so can you try to share your screen?
Sure.
It'll work. I think you know what to do. Because I'd love to see you show some of the paintings.
I don't have any photographs of those, I don't think. Let me see.
Screen. But I want I want people to know that you have that notebook that you showed. How many of them do you have in your studio? I saw them. They're like stacks.
I have dozens of them. Yeah.
Fill with them.
Let's see, entire screen. So you said?
Yeah, just do entire screen. And then from there you can go to whatever page you need to go to your.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Man. Yeah, I do a lot of these are oils here. Is this okay? Can you see it? Wow.
Yeah, let me I'm gonna go to full screen here for me. Whoops. Yeah, I can see them. Yeah,
there are just a lot of oils like that. I start them because I try to get an understanding where I'm going to maybe go with them, you know?
Wow, they're beautiful. These are oils?
Those are oils right there. Those are on the craft paper.
Yeah.
But then
they look like complete paintings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, these are the gouache here that I was just showing.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
and by the way, I think you and I talked about it when you were here last, when we were, but the Zorn got me going on gouache.
Zorn.
Zorn did in mid '90s. The friend and I went to Sweden, and look at this Zorn here. Like I could see these, these are under glass,
Oh,
but just
yeah.
what he was, I don't know. He's so close value with these things, and
What the?
he's the
That's
one
a
that basically got me started.
that's gouache, really?
This is gouache. Yep. Here's a close up of it.
What?
You
Oh,
can't do figures with that damn stuff, right? I mean, that is some complicated work right there.
Can I ask you something about technically
Yeah,
about
yeah.
painting gouache? Do you use watercolor and then some opaque whites, or do you actually use gouache all the way through?
Both. I use
Both.
watercolor and then some opaque white most of the time. Sometimes I use
Uh-huh.
all gouache. It just depends. I like the kick that
Which is
watercolor
easier?
can give them, though. This look at this Zorn.
That's watercolor, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. He's got
Wow.
body in that color, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's opaque, right?
Yeah, it's like you can see transparent areas, but mostly it's kind of just
I've seen this original. That's oils, right?
that's a gouache. So
No,
yes, it is.
I saw that original. That's mind blowing. Yeah. Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Wow. Hmm. Uh-oh. You've you've cut out a little bit, Scott. Oh, we lost him. Hang on. Come back, Scott. So anyway, we'll wait for Scott to come back up. But you can see, do y'all have questions? I hope you're I think you can send in questions. I'm not sure where they end up, but we have um our team in the background fielding questions, I think. Let's see. Yeah, if you have questions, you can submit them to the chat, I think. Let's see. Okay, so let me see if I can get Scott back in, you guys. Hang on. Hang on. All right, I'm going to share my screen, and while we wait for Scott, and you will see, what is this one? So these are some of my other paintings in the show. You can see the variety that's going on. Most of them are. Here's one that I'm playing with red, which is a very difficult color to compose with as the dominant color. So I thought I'd go to the extreme red and see what happens. And here's a little bit more earthy red. So you can really dial back and forth how much you want to play with just a one theme like that. What I like about this painting was it started out with a figure on just lying on a bed or a platform. And then I sort of turned this ground into almost like a landscape. It feels like a landscape. So that was mostly invented. But you can take a painting in so many different directions. This one is kind of a integration where I wanted that figure to become so close in value to the rocks that she becomes not the focal point of the painting, but where the dark surrounds the rocks. So the whole thing is much more integrated because of that. Here's just an oil study of a figure that'll be in the show as well. So we go back to that. So this is a real fun one, 30 by 48. And it has such variety. And again, this is mostly invented, but it started with this figure, and then I infused the design of the night sky. It's like a dream, a dream of a gardenscape, I suppose. But it allows me to, you can crop this painting off right here, and it would be an interesting painting with the variety of shapes and colors that are in there. So when you see this painting up close, you can really get to enjoy the paint quality, I suppose, the variety of thick and thins that are going on in this piece. I wonder if I have Liam in here. Here's the cow. I really love, it's a very different take than the Anders Zorn paintings. Zorn is all about space and the soft edges, and this painting is all about individual strokes of paint and color. Playing with that, like all these little pieces of color that you see in here. Anyway, okay. 50 paintings. This is something entirely different. One of the few Western themed paintings that I have, but it was an actual experience that I had on an all day long horse ride. And it was, I'm not used to riding a horse for that long, and it was really, really difficult. Full of pain, but weaving in and out of the forest, it was so beautiful. Let's see. Let's see if Scott back it on. Oh, sorry guys. I am finding out that I'm sharing the wrong one here. Okay, wait a minute. Is this the one I'm showing? Okay. Let me try again. Okay, there it is. Why is that not the full screen though? There we go. I'm going on and on about these other paintings, and you weren't seeing it. Sorry about that. A lot of technical stuff going on. This is a pretty large painting that I'm putting in the show. I'm still kind of working on it, so don't tell anybody. And going from that to some abstracted koi, and as abstract as just a fire. And in Pennsylvania, what happens is we get to burn our wood and our trash, or usually not trash, but wood debris, tree branches that fell down. And so I built a great bonfire, and I would burn it. We would burn it on a special night, and in the moonlight, out in the open near the fields and farms. It's really a beautiful experience. And staring into it, after a while, I wanted to do a painting, and that was this. This is about a 40 by 40 painting. Anything can be a painting if I think about it long enough. So there are nudes too, and then this one is very shape oriented, like graphic. These graphic shapes that you can really play off the colors. I'm not sure what happened to Scott. Maybe his internet. I hope a tornado didn't come through and get him. Let's see. Let me get it. Let me ask if he's able to get back on. Anyway, we've been at it for an hour, and oh, this one's fun. This is my little boy Liam, and he.
There you go.
Oh, are you back?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm sharing.
How did that work? I don't know what happened.
I don't. That's what happens when you live in the boonies, dude.
No, yeah, well,
You're out
okay.
where Sasquatch lives, so it makes sense. So
Sorry, it just went blank. I've been trying to get on for a while, but
oh wow, okay. So I was just sharing this this image of Liam here.
I wasn't.
Can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
So this last year, Scott, I've been taking a little bit more liberties with inventing paintings, and that's why that one crazy abstract painting of the forest floor, and this painting of Liam, and Liam used to come and hang out in my studio, and then he would fall asleep on the floor,
Yeah.
and then I would paint. I would do this. I did this painting, but I just invented all this landscape around him,
Yeah, that's great.
leaf shapes, and and it's so much fun. I'm really enjoying that. And right above it is I'm carrying that theme on to this piece that you saw earlier.
Yeah.
But look at how different that is than this graphic one that I'm doing.
Wow. Yeah.
And
great.
just to throw things off a little bit, you have this piece, this is an interesting thing. This is a new painting, and it came from, if you look at this flower part, and you can see down here, there is a very naturalistic flower painting of dahlias in the garden. And the first 2 hours I painted it, I loved it. It was great. And then the next month I worked on it, it looked worse and worse and worse. And I put that painting up at a show. When I took it back, I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. So I took this green and I mixed up a big batch of it, and I just attacked the background. I erased the background and left bits of the dark that was what was there behind. And then it looks so cool. And then I added this last bit of green in the end, and the whole thing just like it makes sense to me,
Yeah, that's great. That's cool.
I'm not sure I can do it again, but it is like finding a new language at this paint.
Yeah.
So we'll see if I can do it. I have to do it again to say that I know what I'm doing. Otherwise,
I know what you're talking about. I do.
So
man.
anyhow, okay. I'm glad you're back. Okay. So I don't know what your internet is. So the show is July 20th.
Yep.
And hope you all can make it. I think it's gonna hang up for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So be 100 paintings.
September.
Will you bring some of those sketchbooks to show?
I think they're gonna put a case together or something. They said so. I'll probably put some of those in there. Yeah, they wanted us to bring some different paraphernalia that we use and how we come up with this stuff. I don't know what happened when mine cut out. I've never seen that. I've never had that happen yet. No, so
that's okay.
When
you do it live, it just happens.
Yeah.
So so many different places to go with this. Where I want to ask you, let's say in the last 20 years, how you've grown as an artist. Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds. I think this is probably my best answer to that. Is hundreds of small inspired decisions. I find that most of my best paintings are really about that. They're just a lot of small decisions, but they're all big. They all make a difference as a whole. I hope, and if they're not, I take it out. I try to introduce things that I never used to introduce. I don't know how to even explain what that is, other than you're reshaping things. You're using a little bit of a different palette to try to describe something you don't normally use. And it seems like to me sometimes I feel like I'm trying to be safe. But if you know what the paintings go through, you realize I'm not. You'll see if you saw the layering of it. And that's what I think is the biggest change for me, is a whole bunch of little things that I used to not think about. And I can't even put my finger on one, except I mean, I could bring you dozens of them if I show you specifically, but I don't even know. It's just the intrigue for variety, the need for variety, right? And
That resonates with so much truth when I hear you say that.
yeah,
Because most people who look at your painting might not even see what you're talking about,
yeah,
you know? But here's the difference. When you see an artist who's just learning to paint, who's not as advanced, right? What they're not doing is not making meaningful decisions. All they're doing is trying to make it look like what they think it should look like,
right.
right?
Instead of
And instead of making artistic decisions, it's like when you make that dark instead of black, 70% or 60%, it becomes a different dialogue.
yeah,
And that's the kind of decision making in a painting that takes trial and error, and finding out on your own. And my next door studio mate is Daniel Sprick, who's
yeah,
one of the finest artists in the country. And his motto is black is black and white is white in every painting. And he has,
yeah,
I mean, it's massive in drama.
yeah,
And so, and I see it, I'm like, wow, but I don't think like that,
yeah.
you know?
And that's the thing. I mean, finding out our own personalities is really an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, our temperament changes as we change all the time too, and it's like it's not the same thing as it used to be.
Yeah.
I love that. So what do you think yours are? I mean, by the way, I didn't even mention this, but one of the biggest things that happened to me in this whole show, the majority of everything I painted was not ultramarine blue, it was cobalt blue, but Venetian red, and yellow ochre. That's the majority of my palette. That's the majority of my palette.
What?
And it gets dark. Take a red and put it with cobalt, and it's going to get dark. And it doesn't make any sense to your head, but that keeps my key way up more. And I just can't get as heavy.
What? Your palette that you used is cobalt blue, cadmium red light,
Venetian red.
Venetian red.
I use
And
permanent red if I need it. I'll switch them, but I use Venetian red and yellow ochre.
And white.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
How do you get all the greens?
Oh, if I especially with greens, I'm saying the majority of my palette, that's what I use. And then I'll introduce like a yellow lemon.
Okay.
And then I can get into it, but I want to introduce it. I want to see what I can get out of the core first.
Wow.
So I have more support for those other colors, I just think it's fun to try to limit it like that. And I find my darks don't get crazy dark, and I have way more color in my shadow.
Wow. So all your darks with those three.
Yeah.
I didn't
say I don't step. I'll step into ultramarine later on if I need to jump in and darken it a little bit more. But I'll find myself taking a cobalt and then jumping into, say, a ruby violet in there, something that's a heavier red. I just don't want to solve it the same way every time, But I've found that the majority when I'm going back to repaint these things, I'm keeping that simple palette mostly.
That's so crazy because when I look at your paintings, it has such a rich variety of gradations of warms and cools. It looks so full of color that it's hard for me to imagine that I could do that.
Well, like I say, I reach for other colors later when I'm trying to reach them, but I don't. Typically, if I'm trying to control the painting's key, I'll not get too dark to start with. I'll make sure that I keep that key up, and then I'll gradually rich in color as I need it. I'll introduce colors into yellows and reds and blues, but I seldom change the blue much.
No kidding. Like most artists use ultramarine, cobalt, cerulean.
Yeah.
All of those. You don't.
I use them on occasion. I use ultramarine on occasion. I use phthalo green on occasion. That'll send you past me.
I need all of them, Scott.
I'm not saying I don't want them all. I'd rather start harmonious and then introduce things and try to get crazy with that, and then pull back again and then see what I can. I just try different things, To be honest, I mean the thing that's different between now and 20 years ago is the experimenting.
Really?
And yeah, I just experiment all the time with palettes and color
So you're
palettes.
saying that 20 years ago, you didn't do as much experimenting?
Not as much as experimenting as I do now. What I mean is I know what I want something for before I use it.
Yeah.
But then I'll try to experiment outside of that, and I'll start using phthalo greens and things that are kind of crazy colors
Yeah.
that I don't typically use. Do you use phthalos at all?
I have phthalo green, but they don't make sense to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I see. Okay. They're asking something about questions in a little bit, but I want to ask you. I want to make sure I don't lose this train of thought, which I'm almost there.
Yeah.
When we were talking in your studio, and we're just having some scotch or something, and you use a lot of sports analogy to compare to your work ethic in painting, which I really love. I think people don't realize how hard you work and how tenacious you are at what you do, right? Because you used to play football and you're injured, and that's what brought you to painting to begin with, wasn't it?
All I knew was athletics. That was my whole background. So when I got into painting, I had no idea what it was about. So it was very new to me, but I took the discipline that I learned out of athletics and applied it a lot. Yeah. I just found though that later on in life, one of my best friends is a training coach, and I'd go to the games at USC, and he was coaching a lot of the best athletes we know. USC, also Tennessee, and then he went to Seahawks. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that when I go to the practices and watch this stuff, it was a different game now. All of those guys were that good. So the thing that separated them was their studying. They studied more. They knew more about their opponents than ever. They knew where their weaknesses were. There are stories about, these guys going, "Oh, I found it. I know it's his left shoulder." Stuff simple like that. But understanding where the weaknesses are, Peyton Manning was one of the biggest of those. I mean, what I loved about listening to these guys talk is they had to beat somebody by their smarts at that point. And they try to bait the quarterbacks and things like that too. If they can get the quarterback to see the picture they want so they can throw that ball so they can intercept it, they need the ball back, right? They need the ball back. So the whole game is a different game when you get everybody the same qualifications for athleticism. And what I find that separates them the most is the study and the work within what they considered their best areas, right? I mean, if they're able to move in a box, they call it, there's the movement of a running back, you can train that. And I think it's just fascinating. But you find their strengths and you work to those things. And also you find those weaknesses and pick that up, It was just fascinating.
It really implies that there's a lot of attention that goes into, more understanding and not just eye-hand stuff all the time.
Yeah,
because you could be really a really talented artist who can have a lot of facility. I've seen them come and go over the years, some great ones, where after 20 years they look the same. Like there's no thirst for, and I feel like the great ones, you never see them stop growing. They're shifting. Maybe small shifts, but they're constantly growing.
When you remember in golf how many words make a difference? When somebody's teaching you golfing, when you're golfing, the words make a big difference in how they teach it. And you hear somebody else say they sweep the ball, and it's like it's a whole different sound. Then then whatever, just one word can change the way you think about it. And I realized how important it was to study and to dig into these people that are figuring things out the way they do.
Yeah.
And if you can see how that is, you start seeing, oh, that's how they got there. Like Sargent had this dark brown backgrounds for a while too, outdoors.
Yeah.
And you go, man, it just held that middle value the whole time. And it is just fascinating. I don't know. I just think the more I look at good paintings, don't you just feel like, how'd they do that? What were they thinking? And why were they going that way?
but like a good mechanic,
Yeah,
after
yeah,
a while you can figure it out. You say, "Oh,
yeah,
I
right.
was
Yeah,
thinking about that," and in that way, I think for me anyway, I'm, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah,
owe so much gratitude to these artists that go before us, right?
yeah,
And they solve so many problems for us. And like you think about Rembrandt, who painted light and shadow. Well, Da Vinci didn't understand light and shadow, not the
yeah,
way Rembrandt does. And
yeah.
he's as brilliant as they get. But
Fascinating.
when Rembrandt came along, he painted the light, and
Yes.
what it did with the shadow. And Da Vinci wasn't doing that. He was painting the object, the figures, and so on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the light comes after. So just that little shift of consciousness, just that one little shift makes you an entirely different painter. From
Yeah.
and so for me, um, even though I understand, I'm doing some of the studies, I understand it, but until you experience it for yourself in a painting,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
become yours. And so
Yeah.
I'm doing all these different ideas. It's because I wake up and I get, oh, I wonder if I can do
Yeah.
that. And that's why they kind of like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can do that. And it may take some of them. So like the idea of the figure in the woods and the way they melt together. I had that one idea. I wanted to paint a figure in the forest that the whole thing melt together like wax.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it for 2 years. And then finally I did one little painting. That's it, and it sold right away like that. And I'm like, I wish I had to send it off to a
Yeah.
deadline in Montana. And I wish I had that painting back. But
Yeah.
but then for the next 30 years, I've been painting, revisiting that theme in a little different way. And in this show, let me see if I wonder if I can find that painting in here to show you. Let's see.
I have a beautiful piece of yours that of Woman in the Water there. Just love it.
I do remember that.
You had that at the Selma Gundy Club a few years
Yeah.
back. Yeah. It's beautiful, man. I love your experimenting. I think it's so important. I think I got to tell you that it really is it's ballsy of you to put that out, because what you're doing is you're just showing different ways that you're exposing that. You're exposing okay, this might not work, but I'm going to show it anyway. And that's exactly what I feel like I do throughout the year. I'm not showing all those yet because,
Yeah.
but I find that most of my paintings start that way.
Yeah.
And then but I love that part of painting because it's experimenting that I find the most. Isn't that you? I mean, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. But I force myself into this situation where I'm showing them anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
This painting has changed more than this, but this is one of the paintings. So it started with the figure in the woods, but now it's more abstracted like that.
I love that. Yeah,
But I got to show you a different version because it's gone further than that. Let's see.
yeah, yeah.
Hang on one second. It's been broken down into more structured shapes. So
Okay.
let's see it. Oh, wait a minute. Final images for. Okay, hang on. Here it is. Okay, this is. Okay, now I can share that. Share this one again, and so you saw that rough stage, which was there for a while, but now it's like this. I think, is this the one? Yeah. There. So now it's more shapely. You can see this shape here, and the head is not just a big blur, but it's more shapes upon shapes, right?
Yeah.
And so this painting is 30 years of evolution from the very first one that I did.
Yeah.
Which actually I have an image of that. Wait a minute.
Yeah. How
Okay,
many thousand of them? Yeah.
you get a kick out of this one. Okay, hang on, let me see. It's fun because wait. Larger size. Here we go. Size. Here it is. Okay. Wow, how crazy. This was the first one, and it may be better than anything I've done in 20 years. Check this out. Okay, so this is the one that the very first one that I did that was successful.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's so luscious and juicy, but it's still a line shadow painting. It's only 12 by 24, but it's the paint is dripping, and whereas the one that I showed you before was more cerebral, where I'm intentionally making the shapes do what I want the shapes to do. Whereas this one is not like that. It's more just luscious paint going down. Oh man, I wish I could paint like this again.
It's interesting. I know. Yeah, it's just fascinating how, and it feels, one of the things that happens, you feel like you're outside yourself for a change, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like you paint anything other than how you, I mean, it's like you can't change your handwriting, but you're trying it sometimes, you know?
That's a really great point. Is that, yeah, when you're trying something new, you're trying to go outside of your own skin, right?
Yeah.
But then, in some ways, to do that is easy, but to make it work is very difficult.
And to be objective about it enough to see it.
Right.
Because sometimes I think some of the best things I've done, I'll never see again, you know? I mean, I'll never see them because you're experimenting through it and you're going, I really like it. And all of a sudden you just kill it. And it doesn't take that long. It's just dead, you know? It's like, whoa. It's amazing to me how fast you can lose something and how easy it is to get back, but it's not, it's going to be different. It's just not the same thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've had a few ideas that I was very excited about, and I worked on it, it just never went anywhere. It's like,
what do you think? What do you think you're looking for sometimes? It's different every time, right?
It's different every time. Yeah, this particular painting I'm talking about that didn't go anywhere. It was like what I just showed you with the figures, right? But I wanted to paint the whole thing in a really high key.
Yeah. Okay.
With purple, violets, and greens, which is very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
And paint, and it just never went anywhere. It just first of all, the colors were different to make interesting.
Yeah.
And then I felt like it needed some darks. I threw some darks in, like, well, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted high key. Right?
Yeah.
So it just didn't become the song that I wanted to write. Right. And so I just kind of, the funny thing is I laid it aside. I hauled 56 paintings in our Ford expedition from Pennsylvania to Denver, along with 15 of Adrian's paintings. I mean, we fit the whole thing. I brought that painting out here intending to paint over it. And Dan Sprick came over and he saw it and like, oh, I really love that one. I'm going to take it. I'm like, no, I was going to paint over it. He says, oh.
Yeah.
So maybe, with all the efforts that I put into it, there's something that came through, even though it's not what I wanted. Yeah. There was enough that came through that Dan likes, which he never likes anything. He's very difficult.
Yeah. So he's got
a critical eye. But anyhow, we should field maybe a few questions from the audience, and then we can go from there. What do you think?
You got it.
Okay. Juan, what do you think? Can you give us any questions? What, do you see a little bubble anywhere, Scott?
I see a little has a purple 7 on it, right?
Chat bubble.
Nice.
Oh, I see. It's way to the right. Okay. All right. Studio chat. Oh, okay. I'll get a study like when I go to, can you see them, Scott?
I just did, yeah. And glasses are better, yeah, that works.
Yeah, I'm put on my glasses. If I get a study I like, when I go to enlarge it, it falls apart. What am I doing wrong? What a great question. Can you feel that? I'm going to get a cup of water.
Oh, that was nice. No, I didn't hear that, but which one was it? Okay, how do you get started? Here's your best. Okay, let's see. This is this is Richard Moore. How do you get started in this crazy art business? I've taken Scott's workshop, which is awesome. I will have a hard time with galleries in our area. Any advice for moving forward? You just read something else and took off. I can't find it.
I says if I get a study I like, when I go to enlarge it, it falls apart. What am I doing wrong? Such a good question.
Yeah, I guess too.
As you do so many small studies, and when you go large, so you might be the perfect one to answer that.
I think it falls apart because we don't think of we try to think of making things again. I just think my best studies are basically relationships, and if you don't find that relationship between the things and how they meet, all these edges meet, and all these varieties, when you get a study is a brief understanding of that, and I think trying to keep the variety within a larger piece is not easy. And I think that's what takes the time. Actually, is I mean, I don't know. That's one major way.
I would say, would you say it's okay if you have a small study that really is beautiful?
Yeah.
When you go like really big, the first thing you got to think proportions.
Yeah.
You on a practical level, you can't go. Let's say if your study is square, you don't want to go large with a rectangle, right? It doesn't work. So you got to keep it proportion as it goes up,
Right.
because if you go square, you go from square to rectangle, obviously everything's going to enlarge and stretch weirdly. So you have to almost grid it so that the large masses of dark and lights and mediums grow up big, equally proportional, right? So if you have a shape that intersects the painting in the middle, on the edge of a painting, you got to do the same exact thing. Or if you have an edge of a dark shape or whatever shape that intersects the bottom edge 2/3 of the way to the right, you got to keep those shapes. So when I was teaching and I saw students blow something big, they lose that very first thing, which is drawing. The big shapes were off. And if you off by a little bit, it changes everything. So that shape, and then you got to keep your value proportion too. You know, if it works small in a small order, you got to keep those values also relatively good.
Yeah.
And that allows for color. I have a little more. I see I have a little more color play. You know, and then as far as detail goes, to make the large part interesting, if you keep those big proportion ideas in mind, you can whatever your detail that you put in, don't lose those big overall big proportion.
You can't lose the bigness of the main design, right?
Right, that's it.
You know, if you lose that big read because you broke it up too much, or you're trying too many things just to be clever, which we have to do to learn.
Yeah.
And then
what I found, Scott, I don't know about you, but I found that if I do a small sketch, the only reason to go bigger is if I have more room to play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
You can do so much in there.
Yeah, you can do so much more in there.
Yeah.
But you got to keep those big proportions. I hope that helps. And then what is the best way to determine the value of a color in plein air painting? The best way to determine the value of a color in plein air painting. What's your advice, Scott?
It's always a relationship. And you're going to choose your key, you know. I don't think it's handed over ever. I think it's what I think about outdoors paintings is you choose your key, how high you want to be able to see into that shadow or not. You know, is your shadow going to carry all your color, or is your light going to carry your color? Sometimes the shadow has more saturation than the light itself, and I'll put all the color in the shadow, so I'll key that thing way up. And other times I won't. I mean, I don't think there's a best way, but I think one of the most important things is getting the relationship of how things work together every time for a study.
I think you learn to see color as value before color. Do you?
I see value first. Yeah, I try to see value. Once I find that value that I'm going to start with, that's going to dictate it.
I see. And then there's more room for color after that, isn't it?
But like if you open your key up, as you know, and you're doing it all the time, and when you see into the shadow, how much more color can you get in there? That's the fun part, right? If you open up these paintings, and you say, I want to be able to see into that shadow, all that different color that I'm seeing. You have to change the key once in a while to do that. And that's what you were talking about with the one you liked the most, I thought, is how you were opening that shadow and the dark for getting in the way, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of what you want out of the time. You have to almost put words around it and decide what you want.
Yeah,
And
when
then,
you say you put more saturation in the shadow, does that make the light really light?
it can make the light washed out. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
you can
So
wash it out. Yeah,
yeah, and so the detail becomes the shadow has more detail.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So I
And
mean,
then
it just depends on how you want to key this thing.
yeah,
It's not any different than your camera. You want it to expose it to something.
yeah. I hope that that helps. Richard Morgan says, "Are you both doing a talk on the 20th? Any other dates that you both?" I think we're doing one on the 21st. I
That's
think
right.
I think we're doing something on the 21st. How do you get started in this crazy art business? I have taken Scott's workshop, which was awesome, but I having a hard time with galleries in our area. Oh boy, that is any advice for moving forward? That's a business question, and I'm not so good with business per se. Um, my answer would be very practical, Richard.
Yeah.
I started this business with no expectation.
Yeah.
I was asked one time, you know, why do I paint? And I said, I don't know why I paint, but if I had to wash dishes so that I can paint at night, I would do it. And that's the honest answer.
Yeah.
But the business of it today, there's just so many options. You could do one little painting a day, get on the internet, and if it's any good, you can sell it for $50 to $200. And I've seen artists could do it for. It started around $250, and now they're selling for $750 a painting, and they're doing it once a day. And you don't need a gallery for that, you know. And the gallery, first of all, that's a hard business because they take 50% now, and then you have to pay for the frame and the material and all that. So you end up with like 25% by the time you're done with selling a painting. It's really hard, and unless you're selling the painting for a lot of money, right? So start small. Think the first step that you can make, you know, instead of this giant step, I'm going to be in a gallery right away. And not that you can't do that if you're really, really, really exceptional and your work stands out. I just feel like you got to be just as realistic and as practical as possible.
Yeah, I think everybody should do that. The start like that, meaning find ways to keep the prices down and move hard and try to.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that, and I also think that one way to do it is if you're trying to get some good representation somewhere, don't do it like everybody else is maybe doing it. Try to put a group together that you like. Have variety to it, whatever you want to do, but take it to shop around for this to the gallery at that point. So put a group of work together, a dozen paintings, maybe 20, and say these are the best. These are what I have, and take that to the gallery. That'll surprise them. Say I'm looking for representation. And you already have them put together. It gets you ahead of the game. Meaning you're trying to get better at your craft versus trying to find the gallery before you are. And I think as long as you're selling and you're moving work, and then if you're trying to get that representation, just surprise them with the best work you can give them and say, I'm looking for somebody to represent me. Yeah. It's another idea.
When I was beginning this business, I never looked for a gallery. They came to me.
Yeah.
And I don't, because I was so naive. I didn't know how to do it really. I just painted. I just painted. And then let the chips come whenever they come. And so Susan Wood says, I didn't know, Scott, you use watercolor with your gouache. Can you share a bit more about that?
If I'm too lazy to put out gouache, I use watercolor because I can just add water. That's it. And sometimes if I want to build a body and the color more, I'll go to gouache. But most of the time will use either one that's there, and use bite, obviously, if I need it. I kind of build it slight. I like a little body in the color at times, but watercolor gets a little stronger on occasion, and you can get a little stronger color, and if you need it. But it reacts similar enough, but because I don't use completely transparent all the time.
Yeah. So when you're using watercolor, adding a little bit of that Chinese white or opaque white will make it look like wash, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But of course, it lightens the color a little bit.
It does. And it's going to change value faster than oil will. There's a whole different set of problems with gouache,
Yeah.
but that's the fun part about it too. It's not forgiving, but it is if you know what it's going to do.
But gouache, when you put gouache down, it dries lighter, doesn't it? It's not what it looks like when you put it down.
Yeah.
So
Darks get lighter, lights get darker.
yeah.
Yeah, at least it gets you closes your values a little bit sometimes. But
That's great.
Yeah.
So, Cove Silas, I know composition is a very vast topic. However, do you have any general advice that can be used in every piece? What can you talk about? What creates balance and harmony? Ooh, what's such a good question. Do you see that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I don't
Scott,
know.
let me interject right now. Let me tell everybody you have a online thing that you're doing, right? That people can sign up for.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because this might be great for you.
It's called Adventure Painting because I don't think they ever arrive. We're always on some adventure.
Yeah,
But the truth is I think a lot of the things that have to do with composing
yeah,
are very important, but there's not a best way. There's a lot of different ways you can think about when you compose. And I think what I find is all these things that I'm trying to solve problems for to get the paintings to completion, so to speak. There's a variety of things I have to think about, and that's what that adventure of painting is all about. It's like it shows all the different ways I think when I'm composing, from black and white to color to composition to tension in a painting to creating tension so that it has an opposition. Painting volume.
You call it what? Adventure in painting?
Adventure of painting, AOP.
And
AOP.
how do people sign up for that? How does that work?
I don't. You have to get on AOP. Adventure of painting is you sign up and you get into 3 series. There's about 15 videos in 3 series, and then 15 videos in each of the 3 series, and then there's assignments in there and that sort of thing. But it just gets you to do the work of composing with black and whites, with light and shadow. I mean, with values, and understanding the placement of, I call it 10 lines, stuff like that, or where you're going to place your lines, where you're going to place your shapes exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can break it up. But the point is if you don't have placement, you just have a tough start.
Placement of
composition, but your composition about your value structure, where your value planes are, where your unequal distribution, shape, and scale, all those kind of things. There's just so many things involved in composing, I think.
Yeah. So if let's say you stand in front of this grand landscape, you're traveling through the West or wherever you might be, you see this beautiful scene. That's just the beginning of the problem, isn't it? Because placement, that's what you mean, right? It's like how do you place that onto your canvas?
Yeah. Do you want that stuff, or do you want just the stream,
Yeah. And that's what separates the great artist from somebody who doesn't even understand what painting is all about, because the great ones will always know how to place it so that it's like writing a book. You know the setting, you know your chapters, and then you weave the story through them, right? You tell the story through that. So composition, or I call it structure.
Yeah.
Structure is what values are the big shapes, and then composition is how you place it. And to me, that's the most interesting and the most important aspect of painting. Once you learn how to paint, right? Once you learn how to draw, once you learn to have some facility with your brushstroke and your work and so on and so forth, and then it becomes that. As far as creating balance and harmony, everybody, everyone, like Scott was talking about it earlier, how he uses those 3 colors,
There's harmony. You're fine.
just to create this subtle harmony. And I'm using everything in the hopes that it'll look good when I'm done. So, but I'll set a limit on a painting sometimes, just blues or blues and greens or blue and orange complementary, or blue and greens instead of a scale of way over here, which is full chroma. I would go here and half chroma, or even here where it's grayer blues and greens, and just so each one is a different intention. So you can create balance and harmony through intention. And you have to understand what that means to you, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so true. You want it really harmonious and subtle and close values and tonalistic. I mean, every painting has tonal qualities to it somewhere, usually to support the big color. It's like it's all there.
Inescapable. You can't do it without values.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could do like your study, Scott. You can send one of those studies to me, and you can turn it into a black and white. And they're so good that I could take that black and white and do 5 different paintings, and different color harmonies, but the values will always stay consistent to what that sketch would be, and it would be good paintings. Whether I have a lot of detail in it or not. So
yeah,
I wish I had somebody to do sketches for me. That'd be awesome. just hand it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eileen, Quang, do you find any techniques in particular that are unique to the Pennsylvania landscapes versus more grandiose scenes in Colorado? I wouldn't say that's true. There's Daniel Garber was one of my favorite landscape painters from Pennsylvania. Absolutely amazing, right? He just full of color. I can totally picture him painting, the grand Western landscapes. Can't you, Scott? Using his
yeah. I'd love to have him choose a key and a temperature. You just like go for a bluer version or a Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I know he's so good. One of my beautiful composition, great color, beautiful value shifts, and then you have Andrew Wyeth, which is to me the greatest artist who ever lived. To me, and he uses browns and black and hardly any color, a little touch of green, but there's not a more poetic, intentional, and badass painter than Andrew Wyeth. He is so amazing to me, and Pennsylvania makes perfect sense for Andrew Wyeth. Yeah. I can't imagine him painting the colors of the West. He's not a colorist, but I would be surprised to see him do that. But for me, I've been staring at the Pennsylvania landscape for a long time, but I haven't really started painting it yet. I'm letting it just seep through my skin for a while. So maybe later I'll do it.
That's good.
What else? Will your show be available in catalog to purchase? Yes, it will. They're making a catalog right now.
Yeah.
And what medium do you use? How do you use them? How often do you dip into them? Oh, medium. Do you use medium, Scott?
On occasion. It's just if I'm trying to get it to tack up enough to do another layer to get the thing done so I get a photograph of it too. You know what I mean? You're trying to you're trying to get that thing to tack up more. I'll use like a Galkid medium.
Galkid?
I'll use Galkid, yeah. I'll glaze with it. I'll use cold wax and I'll mix that with paint.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the difference between Galkid and Galkid Light?
I don't know that there's a lot of just the temperature to me. I mean, it doesn't get as brown to me. It seems lighter, and I don't know that that's the case. Now, I really don't know on that. Galkid Light to me just seems like a lighter look to it. It doesn't darken as much to me. It seems like it's
what more, about liquid? Do you use liquid?
I don't use liquid anymore. Yeah. To me, it just gets a little brown and it starts changing the temperature of the paint.
Does it?
The color, especially on top, yeah.
Okay.
If I glaze with it, it doesn't, it darkens too much for me.
Interesting. Okay. So I use, I'll use liquid, like if Colorado dries a lot. So sometimes I'll just rub on a real thin coat
Yeah. Yeah.
If I want to dry faster, it really accelerates drying.
Yeah.
But I glaze with all kinds of neomeglib and all,
You know,
just playing around with this stuff all the time.
yeah. Yeah.
But I
You know,
don't use a lot of medium while I'm painting wet on wet.
yeah.
I don't tend to use any of that, right? Did we miss anything up above? How do you get started? Okay. I just want to make sure I get everybody here. Are you both doing a talk? Yes. How do you get started in this business? Okay. Well, Scott, then I guess I'll ask you the last few questions.
Whoa.
What's the most important thing in your head these days? It doesn't have to be art.
Yeah. I'll
What
tell
do you
you.
think besides Sasquatch and UFOs?
I love watching. I love what I don't know if anybody ever has seen. Recently, I showed it to my daughter too. She's a counselor, and she talks about. Anyways, Dean Dillon story is called Tennessee Whiskey is the name of the movie.
Ah, yes.
And if anybody's not watched it, I love that. I love that. It's just it shows this guy who's a writer who Dean Dillon that is, and he wrote for a lot of the best country music. But when you listen to the way he writes and how he portrays everything in this movie, those kind of things I just love. It just to me it feeds me too. You know, it's like I'd love to. Willie Nelson's got one. Willie Nelson and Family is 4. I mean, I love listening to classical music, but these are just great stories about good writers and good musicians, and the diversity that they push themselves into is really fascinating to me. I mean, they push themselves into ways of doing things that they wasn't comfortable. And I love that about those guys. The writers were that way, and they knew it. They knew where the good writers were. All the hey, you have to watch them. It's beautiful.
I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to do that. And can you sort of in real quickly summarize what the important point is to them?
Well, Dean Dillon found out he wanted to be a musician as well, and he didn't have what they wanted there. But his writing, once he solidified where he wanted to go, his writing just seemed to go better, better and better and better, because he realized I don't have to sing. I would just start writing for the best, people that want to listen to this music that I'm writing. And I think George Strait, for instance, got all of his music for a while, but the point is he didn't take Tennessee Whiskey. It took Stapleton to take that.
Really interesting.
These guys were really good friends at the end, and he goes, "That's my best one." Anyway, I just think it's fascinating.
That's so cool.
And it's just, I mean, the diversity, the way Willie Nelson would sing with an opera singer, and you go, this can't work. This opera singer, he belted out, right? This opera, and you kind of look at him like good luck with the rest of this. And Willie would just step in and put his own twist to it, and he had his own tempo and everything. And it just was fantastic. And the idea is that he stayed himself there. He didn't try to adapt to that guy.
Yeah.
But he pushed himself to try those things, just to make it work. And I think that's part of what our artistic life is like.
Absolutely. At the peak level of joy, that's where it is. I want to know what it's going to feel like to try this. Even I don't care if it goes well or not.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But underneath all of that is a structure of a whole 30, 40, 50 years of experience to build on top, obviously. And as you know, I have the platform called MFA, which is Made for Artists Studio. And what it is I'm trying to build a curriculum on there that you can go on, and there's tons. I think I've got 30 videos on there, from beginning drawing to videos about values, videos on how to break down a chaotic structure of a nude in the forest, so it makes all sense to you, But besides me, I'm trying to bring in other artists. We have other artists on there who teach like the way you do your philosophy about painting is so foreign to how I can think. And I'm just amazed by it, because and it makes perfect sense if you explain it to me. And I love this idea of you doing this painting with those 3 colors. I can't even picture it in my head. You might have to do a video for us. Can I borrow you?
Yeah.
But so you can go on there and it's like a YouTube for painting is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah,
So you
that's great.
join. But actually, I'm changing MFA a little bit. I want to make it a store too, where you can subscribe and watch everything you want, or you could buy individual videos if you don't want to commit to that. So I want to make it a little store platform, so you can, if you have videos for sale, Scott, if you want to have a couple on there, you can put it on there, and you keep most of the profits or whatever. But it gives people a place to go and have options with all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to resuscitate, because MFA with COVID, and I got busy with Liam, and it took me away from that. But now I want to bring it back, and I love the idea of artists sharing the ideas, in one spot. So we'll see what it is. I have a couple of young guys helping me with this, so they're getting me on Twitter and Instagram, of course. You can find MFA on there, and then our show, which is being picked up on the 29th of June. All the paintings go down to Kerrville, and the opening is July 20th.
Yeah.
And you and I will be there, and we'll have a little discussion of some kind for the public on the 21st. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I just learned about that.
Can I tell a story about you? I've always loved hanging out with you, and you're just like this big teddy bear. But the one story that endeared me forever is we came and visit when I was with Adrian, and we came to visit you in your home. And Adrian loves to fish, and Adrian, she's very she doesn't look like a fisherman, but she wanted the experience of catching a fish, and you're the fisherman, and you took her out to teach you how to fly fish. You got her hooked up, and you walked her out to the middle of the stream. The only problem was you had this horrible back pain and a hip pain and a leg pain that you could barely walk. You waited out in the middle of the stream. I was so afraid you were going to fall and get pulled down the stream, and nobody, and I can't swim, so I can't save you. And you walked her out, and I'm just watching this whole thing, and you didn't stop until she caught one fish, fly rod, and then you hobble back to the. And I remember I tried to float down a little small-sized log so that you can catch it and use it as a cane to walk back.
Oh yeah.
I tried to talk you out of doing all that, but you wouldn't take no for an answer, and I just thought that was the sweetest thing you ever did. But that's your football,
I don't know,
mentality. I'm gonna get this done.
I just love the West though, and I love people to experience what it's like to some wild river like that, and you get to see this. I mean, out of nowhere, this fish shows up, and you just didn't. It's just such a neat thing, and I mean, it's same with me. I mean, I love watching the look on your face when we go down there. Oh
gosh, yeah, amazing.
There's just so many places to see, and Quang, you feed us, all of us, in different ways, and thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
It's really awesome to see your work, and I think it's just as good as I've ever seen your work. I love the experimenting you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
I think some of our best work comes from that. So,
oh yes, but I've promised myself after this deadline, which is I'm not taking on anymore, so that I can work on a painting for as long as I want. And not think about it. So that's next. I'm really looking forward to diving into it. So maybe we'll have a reunion in a few years and talk about this. And remember I was talking to you about this. We'll close on this, but I remember talking to you about maybe getting together a kind of a symposium, like gathering, maybe in Pennsylvania out here in the fall, or we can just say Scott and I will be here. Maybe have a few other artists that are recognizable name wise. And then other artists come and paint with us. We may have a workshop or two, whatever, or most of the time we just scatter and paint and have campfires at night, just a little. Wouldn't that be fun?
That's where you learn the most, really.
Yeah, and people can find their own lodging, and we don't have to hold their hands like these conventions. If you want to show up, I think it would be a lot of fun to do that.
Thanks for doing this today. I appreciate it, Paul.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. I really have been looking forward to it, Scott. So we'll be seeing you in a month.
Okay, you got it, man.
Okay, take care.
Fantastic.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again soon. All right, man. Bye-bye. How do I leave? Okay, here we go.